Now everything's gone. What happens then?
All of a sudden, you're in a vacuum. No one needs you. Like, you don't have the team, you don't have your co-founders doesn't need you, you don't have your weekly or daily stand-up. The only one who needed me was my wife, right? It's like, and that's great, of course, but it's like...
After my startup failure, I felt really empty.
Hey everyone, this is Heini and Hassan here, and welcome to Founders Weekly, where we tell startup stories you can learn from. Today I want to discuss one of the toughest topics in the startup world, failure. Specifically, what is it like to fail, and what can we learn from that? We have a founder on that has been through this just now, shutting down after years of work and millions in funding. Today's co-host is Hassan. He's a founder, a developer, and a friend. Welcome, Hassan.
Thank you, Heini.
Great to see you. And how do you feel about this subject? I mean, we usually keep sort of high spirits here. This is, a tough subject. What do you think?
I think it is just like from the deep breath, right? It's a very emotional subject for me as well.
Yeah.
I think like startup failure isn't just losing a company. A lot of time, like relationships die within the company. I mean, you have people's livelihood, right? A lot of times you're going out there trying to keep the company alive by funding or whatever, and you're thinking, oh man, if the company goes down, like how are these people going to make a living? There's a lot, and of course it's also your baby in the end. Like at least for me, especially as like a technical founder, I'm sure it's also for all founders. It feels like this is my little baby, and I'm just losing it. So yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah,
and it's we sometimes say the startup game, but it literally is not a game. It has real life consequences for people when something like this happens, right? So definitely not easy. Before we start, I want to touch on some numbers here. According to the Startup Genome 2022 report, it says while about 90% of startups completely fail, Startup Genome research demonstrates that only 1.5% of startups, so 15% of the ones that make it, produce a successful exit of 50 million or more. And this was across top 8 US startup ecosystems. So just to give you a quick one, 90% fail, 10% make it, and around 1.5 of all, or 15% of the ones that make it, have a successful $50 million exit. So with 1.5% chance of what a lot of people consider a success, I mean, what the heck are we doing here?
I don't know. It's you gotta love just the hardship of it. I mean, that's honestly why I do it. And people think I'm crazy, and there's probably a little bit of craziness to it. But honestly, that's how I do it. Like, I genuinely enjoy the harder days of a startup than the good days. Like, really genuinely. This whole thing of
but also making it, right?
Make it. Yeah, exactly.
It's hard, but then making something.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, like the last, when you actually don't make it, that's always going to be tough, like what we were saying. Yeah. But also, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, kind of thing. There is a lot of learning that comes with failure, just in everything in life, and startup is even more of that. It's a very heavy what is it, what we call it yesterday, like expensive education, right? Founder education.
It is yeah.
So
it can be very expensive, but you can learn a lot from it, right?
Exactly.
I think I've also found, honestly, that I like doing hard things. I do enjoy doing hard things. I remember the book Atomic Habits, which you might have read. I love the book. Gave it to everyone around me. Yes. And he talks about this balance of things that are too easy, we don't want to do, things that are too hard, we don't want to do. And then you should look for some center there that keeps us motivated. Oh, this is challenging enough. Too hard, don't want to do it. Too easy. And I definitely swing towards like doing things that are a little bit harder.
Absolutely. I'm very, very similar. One thing that's interesting is the momentum aspect of it, of just like, you kind of start easing into like your startup kind of thing, and things are a bit like slow and then fast, and then suddenly it consumes your whole life. And then you just, although it's extremely difficult, it just consumes your whole life, and you start doing it day in and day out. And I think mental health comes in there too. I don't know if we're going to talk about it later, but that's a massive part of it. Okay, cool. So totally. We'll leave that for later.
So I did a video on why do startups fail a couple of years ago, And I sort of broke it down to the 5 biggest reasons. I want to talk about the top 3 here, just so we don't spend all the time on that. But the top 3 was number 3, broken founding team. Number 2, bad timing. Number 1, no product market fit. With no product market fit, without a doubt, being by far the biggest. But have you seen any of this? Have you seen all of these?
I think I've seen all of them. Yeah, absolutely. The PMF one is definitely a product market fit. PMF is definitely the biggest. I think in your video you talked about like the PMF machine and everything like that.
Yes.
Okay, that's great stuff. Please go see that video. I mean, that is.
I did 2 videos of this. One of them is about specifically on how to find product market fit and so on. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not just like the biggest indicator of not just failure, but also if you're building the right thing and if you're succeeding. So if you're trying to avoid failure, like it's a huge one. Bad timing. I mean, I've had those in my startups. My last startup was definitely a bad timing thing. I mean, it was utilizing a whole lot of chatting and chatbotting, and I was doing the latest and greatest, but it was nowhere near what ChatGPT came out like shortly after.
No, that's the problem.
And so that's just, what are you going to do?
I honestly, I talk about this also, but I often think that bad timing is that people think it's good to be early. You do not want to be early. What you mentioned there also, you were a little bit too early.
Yeah.
I always go, hey, I'd rather be a little bit late than early, because if you're too early, technology is not ready, market isn't ready, you're spending too much on building something that suddenly is widely available. It really sucks to be too early.
Absolutely. I mean, imagine how many picture apps, for example, came out before Instagram, right? I mean, how hard is it to just have a wall of pictures? Except like even UX itself, like the experience itself, design changed, the way people interact with their phones changed, just the power of their phones. Like it just wasn't really possible. And then, a simple team can come, learn from other people's mistakes, and just build something amazing. Yeah.
And the same with Vivino was like, we talk about timing.
Yeah.
Like, that was perfect timing, and not because we were especially smart, but it just was, right.
Yeah.
And so timing is important. You don't always know it. You can look afterwards. You can look at it and say, yeah, that was too early. That was too late. Yeah. So it is a good reason, but it's hard to do in reality.
It is. And then like founding team.
Yes.
Classic, right?
It is. If you don't have a good founding team, you're not going to make it. It's you're not going to make it. If you don't manage expectations, all those things, you're not going to make it.
It's a marriage.
Yeah. So those were the top 3. Yeah, for sure. Broken founding team, bad timing, and no product market fit. We'll see when we get our guest on what was the reason why they didn't make it. So I want to talk about one more thing, which is outside the list here. And I know you also, it's about investors. So the relationship between investors and founders can also have a great impact. Investors want to see returns, and sometimes that pressure can push founders to make decisions that might not align with the original vision or the best in the long term. According to CP Insights, one of the top reasons startup fail is due to misaligned goals between founders and investors. The report says misalignment with investors on company direction can be a fatal flaw. So I think this is true, especially the misalignment. But this one that says, hey, we failed because we couldn't raise money, I just don't buy that, because when you can't raise money, there's an underlying reason. The not being able to raise money is the symptom or the consequence of that. But misalignment can be a real problem. What do you say, Hassan?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had my fair share of I don't know, investor issues. Let's just call it that. And you learn.
I'm sure those investors think they have founder issues too.
Absolutely, right. I mean, it is a relationship in the end, but also, like for me, there are aspects of every company that are non-negotiable when you're interacting with people. And it is to actually interview those people and make sure they're a right fit. So only one team member can ruin your whole company. Honestly, I genuinely believe this can ruin the whole morale, the structure, the culture.
And the same is true for investor.
And the same is true for investor. And this is like literally one investor. So it's not just about going out there and getting the money. It is about getting the right money. And also, specifically when we're talking about failure here, investors are the number one people that founders are going to go to when things are going bad. What do we do? What is it we're supposed to, and if they're just like, oh, figure it out, or they start charting a whole nother direction, and then you simply
and they just don't know what they're doing, right?
No, you need someone on your side. Advice. Exactly. And then same thing with actually advisors. This is a huge one. A lot of people hire consultants or something like that. And actually, you know what? My number one thing when I'm hiring like a consultant kind of thing, I want to know their failures. I want to know like, where did they fail? If someone that just was somehow part of some company that exited and blah, 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 I don't know. They could have easily been lucky,
Yeah, it does happen.
So yeah, and it happens a lot actually. So
I mean, the managing expectations, we know we're talking specifically about investors, but again, like you say, with founders too, like managing expectations is just one of the top things when you build these things. That's for sure.
And communication, a whole lot of that. I need to be able to communicate really well with my investor. Like for example, me and you, I know that we would have such good chemistry as like investor founder, because we can actually talk really, really well. We can discuss anything. And that's just a lot of people, they barely meet their investors. Term sheet, cool. This is a thing. Here's some money. No.
Last round we did, we raised $150 million. I never met the investors. It was all hey, COVID. So
but that's a big round.
That's a big round. That was wild. That was pretty wild. Okay, we're going to dig deeper into these topics when we bring on our guest after the break. Stay tuned as we chat with Robin Blichfeldt. He was the CEO and co-founder of Cogo. Cogo, unfortunately, ended up failing and shutting down a few months ago. We are back, and our guest today is Robin Blichfeldt, the CEO and co-founder of Cogo. Robin, welcome to Founders Weekly.
Thank you so much, Heini. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. I know this is a tough subject, so I just wanted to give you a special thank you for coming on, because this might not exactly be what people want to talk about. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences.
Yeah, of course. I think it's good to talk about, and I think we should talk about it more.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So before we get into it all, or before we get into how it ended, let's talk about how it began and what Cogo actually was.
Yeah, so Cogo was a shared mobility aggregator. We started it in the middle of the pandemic, which maybe was a bad timing during a pandemic, but it gave us some time to figure out the product and grow and test things. And slow growth we had, we could blame on COVID. So I think that was good.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking the constant pitch is like, why are you not growing yet? Well, we're still in a pandemic. It's going to be fine as soon as it ends.
Exactly.
And you better deliver when it ends, right?
That's the thing. But I think we did. To some extent, at least. So we gathered e-scooters, shared bikes, cars, mopeds from a bit over 300 operators. We were live in 70 countries and 700 cities around the world. So we had users on every continent and almost every country. So yeah.
Yeah, and obviously I tried it. It's it's really cool because you could see all the scooter, not just one app, one company. So that part was really, really amazing. And like you said, you started mid-COVID, but you did really well. You also raised a lot of money. How much money did you raise?
Yeah, not compared to you maybe, but we raised a bit over 2 million euros, like angels and early stage, and then a pre-seed round.
So when you did that, when you look back, you got a decent amount of growth in the beginning, right?
Yeah. So in the beginning, a couple of thousand users, but eventually we became, if not the biggest, but one of the biggest mobility aggregators in Europe. We had all in all a bit over 1 million users in all of these countries that I just mentioned. What I'm also really proud of is that we started monetizing the product. We launched full integrations, which is essentially you can find the vehicles, you can register in our app, get access to all the different operators, and then you could also ride and pay directly with Cogo with one account. Mm-hmm. We were not the first ones to do that, but we were kind of the first ones where it was actually seamless. So some other platforms, you had to sign into the operator, register, top up the account, connect it, and then you could use the funds. But with us, you could just use it directly through us. So
and that awesome.
That was technically very hard, but we managed to do it. So, but yeah, as we will get
How
into.
How did you guys monetize? Like, was it a percentage or something of the transaction?
Exactly.
Or?
Commission, traditional commission model, and then we also took a markup on the user side. So they paid up to 10% extra for using us for the convenience. And over 50% came back and took multiple rides, so they didn't seem to bother too much about it. Eventually, we wanted to go into topping up and monthly cards, monthly accounts, or monthly passes, and then we could kind of offset our markup with the discount and volumes. So they would pay essentially. We wanted for them to pay the same. That was kind of the idea.
Yeah. I mean, looking at it, talking about it now, and obviously there were users on. The investors believed in it. You believed in it, and you were at it for a long time. But a few months ago, as this is what we're going to talk about, you decided to shut it down. Tell us a little bit more what led to that decision. How did you end up there?
Yeah, that's definitely a tough decision. It's not something you decide overnight either. So yeah, there was a hard period. Quickly, could just go back a bit. We raised 2 funding rounds, one in 21 and one in middle of 2022, around 1 million euros each. And for every round, we kind of laid up our milestones, how we're going to use the funds. Is it growth? Is it tech? Is it what are we going to spend the money on? And we also had always very high ambitions, of course, when you talk to the investors, but also realistic. And we laid out the plan. Okay, so this is what we want to achieve the next 18, 24 months. So we did that in 21. Then in 2022, we said, okay, now we've proven the product works. People are coming back, maybe not to the extent that we want to, but we want to build these full integrations, and then because that's what everybody wants. So we wanted to do that and then start generating revenues, and that's kind of what the investors in the second round bought into, which we did. So we did achieve that in 2023. We launched the product and it was live. We said we wanted to go into 2 countries. We actually opened up in 5. We had all this really good traction. We achieved what we said, almost 2 years prior. So you would assume that, okay, investors just going to pour the money in.
Great.
And it's a no-brainer,
they're
right?
just waiting to write the check here. Everything's good.
Success story, baby.
Yeah. One call and it's all done, and terms sheet is signed. But yeah, not really. 23, 24 there, end of 23 and beginning of 2024, so of course went back to my current investors that, hey, we achieved all this. I went back to the guys that had said no in the previous round, because of course they want a bit more confirmation on the thesis. They want a bit more data. They want a bit more proof. So I went back to them and hey, remember I said this a year and a half ago. I've achieved it and a bit more. But then the market was really different, as I think we all know.
Yeah, funding market.
Yeah, the funding market, inflation, the war, interest rates, everything. So it was very different. So it wasn't only based on us. And we had, I was but we have revenue now. And then okay, that's great, but we want 10x more. Or now we have all these amazing contracts, including ride hailing, with some of the big ride hailing. But then they're but that's a bit risky. We want twice as many, And then our retention was maybe 5% in 6 months. Before it was 25 now, so still not best in class, but pretty good numbers. So we said everything we've done, we've improved, but it wasn't enough. I think we were a seed stage, and the requirement for us maybe was what it was for Series A year or 2 ago, right? So we needed that 10x in revenue and higher retention and all that. So
you're saying they moved the goalposts on you?
Yes, someone did.
Someone. Yeah. So did you go through any round of layoffs or anything? Did you try to extend the company life kind of thing, or was it just we don't think this is gonna work?
Yeah, we did. So we always kept a lean team, but we were around 10 people, then a bunch of freelancers, and investors were pretty hands-on as well. But we laid off half the team mid 23, and we managed to extend to 8 months maybe. We also cut down on some other spending and saved where we could just to prolong, to give ourselves some time. So we saw this already maybe a year ago, so in 2023, and we wanted to give us more time into halfway into 2024, and we managed to do that as well. But then so considering the market conditions, the requirements for us of startup, so okay, no external funding, and then it was, can we become profitable or close that gap? But we also knew that we needed quite a lot of volumes, because if we take 5 to 10% on each ride, and one ride is 30-40 kroner, 3-4 euros, we need more than 1 million users to use us regularly, right? So we also knew that we wouldn't be able to turn it around with the time that we had left. So
yeah. I mean, that's tough. I wasn't sure if because the market, you're right, the market changed so much, but it does sound like you actually still believed in it. So if the money had come, maybe a smaller round, maybe something, you would have continued.
Yeah, I mean, I still believe in it, and maybe I'll give it another go again. I don't know if I'll do something else, but I mean, we came in with this bigger vision as well. You know, we wanted to improve the cities of the world, like the climate. So reducing the congestion, moving people from private cars into shared mobility and all of that, moving them from gasoline to electric vehicles. We have that bigger purpose, and I'm confident that will happen, right? So I still believe in that purpose and that mission, and we sold the company to a Belgian company, or Cogo to a Belgian company, so they're gonna keep going as well, which is exciting, of course. But obviously, you prefer to be yourself and not someone else.
No, exactly. So my next question on my list here was what do you think the primary reason was for you having to shut down? But it feels like you're pretty firm on that. But what if we, if I push back a little bit and say, no, it's never the investor's fault. What do you think you could have done, or what do you think you need to improve to get them on board?
I don't think you should blame the investors. I mean, they have the thesis, and they're meeting hundreds and hundreds of startups. So I think it's my job as the entrepreneur to convince them that I'm the best case, right? And which I didn't. So I think, looking back, I think we should have definitely started with full integrations a bit earlier. Technology wasn't really there. There was a few things.
Can I just stop you there a little bit? I just want to make sure everyone understands what we're talking about here. So the app is an aggregator of all these other transportation apps. And when Robin says full integration, it means that you stay in this app and do the full transaction. You start the scooter in the Cogo app. No, you don't jump out, because that's how you did it in the beginning, right? So you want to make sure people understand.
Exactly. So we also have a background from Momondo. So imagine you're finding a flight ticket or a hotel on Momondo. Then actually we send you, or Momondo sent you over to book it at SAS or Norwegian or something. So that's where we started off, and we wanted to become the booking.com of shared mobility. So we could do everything there. And actually, when we started, these operators, they didn't even have third-party APIs or anything like the big ones. Like maybe I shouldn't mention names, but they didn't have third-party APIs for partners even back in 21. So it was a super new market. Then eventually it came, and they started doing partnerships, so it was a bit easier. But still, it was the market was 5 years old, right? So super new.
Yeah. Hassan and I talked about some of the reasons, and timing is one of them, right?
I was just going to say,
yeah. You might have been a little bit early, right?
Yeah. And we were not the first ones to launch, actually. So I figured they were early. We ended up acquiring one of them, one of the platforms. But you're right. Okay. It could be that the ones coming now has better timing. But I thought I was spot on, but we'll see. It's hard to know when you're in it.
Sometimes exactly, like the partners and the tech specifically, like really doesn't cooperate, right? Like right now, of course, in hindsight, you can say, yes, I should have done the integrations, but if you would have done them back then, how much more difficult was it going to be, right? Like a lot of this was not even available.
Exactly. So, and that's kind of the assessment our CTO Martin did as well. Like, like in 22, he's like, it's not possible. But then in 23, if we could do it, it's a very thin line if you're too early or too late or spot on.
Maybe you should have started 2 years later. I mean, you could never know that, and you would never do that. But in theory,
but it also sounds to me like now is a good time, right? And which is why I don't know if surprised is the right word, right? But I guess the question, if I were to turn it to a question, is like, why weren't the investors a little more patient? Why do you think they didn't believe that, okay, these guys did it when it was hard, so now when the tech is available, now is when this thing is going to take off?
Yeah, I mean, don't want to point fingers or anything, but of course
you can.
think,
I mean, it's fine.
You think that as well. Like, but just believe in me. You look at, I promised this, I delivered this. The market is growing, and everything looks. It's a tough time for everybody. Yeah. But then it's also, of course, they look at their other portfolio companies. They're looking at other new bets and all of that. So it's also hard to. I don't have all the information that they have, obviously. And maybe we were a bit, what box do you put us in? Yeah, we're a consumer, we're in mobility, we're an aggregator. But a lot of the VCs, they're talking B2B, SaaS. Yeah. I mean, MRR. Like, and I'm like, what do you mean? They pay as you go. I don't have MRR. Like, I don't have subscriptions, So I think it was also hard for them to figure out what box to put us in.
The other thing they were doing is that they were extending their runway. So they were also worried about. So if they had a fund that they have to fundraise 2 years, they thought, if we can extend that to 3 years, we're gonna have an easier time. So they were holding back on people like you because they want to extend their runway too. That also happened a lot during that period. Yeah,
and they were like, remember all the valuations and so many tickets and deals and everything. It was crazy in 2021, 22. It was just, I'm like, this is not going to last. And it didn't, right? So all the investors were like, the risk they had, I mean, I'm surprised not more have gone bankrupt or closed down. And
You'll see. There's still time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. By the way, were they like involved in the company at all? Like over time? Like more hands-on involved or helping or even like helping with the vision or helping with the roadmap or anything like that?
Yeah, so some of them we knew from before, like had been the CEO of Momondo, Pia, for instance. We worked super close with her, and Yngve at Morph Capital and so on. Like these, some of them were extremely hands-on, and we had pre-seed as well. And you kind of get what you ask for. So if you ask for help, you often get it. So I would say they are hands-on, of course, in the board meetings, but also if we needed a workshop around sales, or we had one of them helped us a lot with the tracking analytics, doing analysis on our cohorts and all of that. So we utilize them a lot, I would say. And if you ask, usually you also get help. So that was helpful because it's not my first company, but it's the first time it's of this size, you could say, with more venture capital involved. So I did a lot of rookie mistakes and as well in the beginning, and they were there to help and guide.
Yeah. So it sounds like a good relationship with your investors. So I want to pivot a little bit here. So it's always mentally tough to run a startup, and obviously shutting it down must have been incredibly hard mentally. Could you tell us a little bit about what that was, especially the days when you maybe had pressure to make a decision? And so what was that like mentally?
I mean, you work with it for 4 years, and everybody says it sounds a bit ridiculous, but it feels like you baby rights. You sketch the first mock-ups of how the app will look. You sketched out the logo, like all of that. Just you get emotionally attached, right? And then realizing that it might not work is really tough. We did not plan for it, but one of the scenarios when we talked end of last year and beginning of it was that, okay, worst case, we might close down. Obviously, we have kind of an end date on the runway. So mentally, that also gave me some time personally to kind of get used to the thought and adapt to it. And so it didn't come as a surprise, even though it's extremely sad and get a bit angry, or did I do enough? did I really put my heart and soul into it?
Who did you get angry at? Yourself or others?
No, I think the feeling of being angry hit me, but I decided quickly that I was not angry. I was not angry at anybody else. I was more maybe upset and feeling, you can't help but feel a bit like a loser or you didn't succeed, right? Because we want to be winners. So I think more that it took a hit on, because you think you're the biggest, baddest gorilla around. Confidence, that's the word. Yeah. Took a bit of a hit, obviously. And you have to work on that as well, and like mentally work on it. I did a lot of journaling, reflecting. I wrote down every year what happened at Cogo, what did we do, what decisions did we take, what did we want to get out of it, what did actually happen, what could I have done differently. But looking back, I come out more with pride, or that we did a really good job. The odds were against us, like 90% fails, like we talked about. So still with the learnings and everything we did, and with the investors and the board and the team, everybody, like surprisingly was pretty okay with it. There was no hard feelings, which was, I guess, also nice to have. Like, it's not nice if you start blaming, pointing fingers. Yeah. It's like a roller coaster.
What is it,
it's like,
I think you should be like really, really proud, honestly, like of what you built, because it's one thing to like build a startup, whether it goes well or bad. It's another to build something like of real value. You had like a lot of users. You're actually providing something. You're making an impact like on the climate, on the globe, etc. And most people actually can't say that, like even ones that have succeeded, right? So that pride thing is very important, because yes, like it takes a toll. Right. And I'm glad you're like taking care of yourself during, but also after, kind of thing, because like it's really difficult after you go through something like this. So yeah,
it's a bit like post-traumatic stress almost, right? It's
So then when you let go, what happens to you after that? Everything's gone. The phone's not ringing, it's not beeping all the time. What happens then?
Exactly. Yeah, it's spot on. Like, it's all of a sudden you're in a vacuum. Like no one needs you. Like, you don't have the team, you don't have your co-founders doesn't need you, you don't have your weekly or daily stand-up, you don't have a product roadmap to discuss or a bug to fix. Investors are not calling. Like, the only one who needed me was my wife, right? It's like, and that's great, of course, but it's like,
we appreciate her.
Without her,
your whole life just flipped, like one day to another.
And and because the kind of Q1 this year I've always worked quite a lot, but Q1 was like definitely the most intense, and going from that, and it's like silence. So that's, of course, and I haven't heard about that. No one had mentioned that, and I haven't even thought about it because I was so in fixing this. I went to US for some big customer meetings. That was like our last Hail Mary, and on a plane back, I sat down and I was just like, fuck, okay, I didn't do it. Came back on the Sunday, landed on Sunday. We already had the board meeting booked on Monday. So I knew that we were going to meet the day after at 10 a.m. or something and make the call. So of course that's it is very strange, and I'm all fine now and all good, but it's a good exercise to go through, I guess. You don't want to go through it, but
well, no, I'm not sure I recommend it, but it can be healthy.
You can build a unicorn.
If you survive it, it's great, and it seems like you have, and you have so many learnings. I mean, I could see it, I could hear a lot of wisdom coming out of you already, and that is what happens, right? But I totally empathize specifically with, like, after my startup failure, I felt really empty, like just what. There's nothing, this nothingness you describe, and you have to sit with that. And also the PTSD you mentioned, like, I'm still not fully over that, I think, a little bit. Even with some of the decisions I'm making now with starting a new company, I still have some of the PTSD just from like the little things that affected me, right? So there needs to be some kind of post-startup failure therapy, specifically targeted.
For sure, but it does. It sounds like you're taking care of yourself. Go ahead, Robin.
No, I just on what you said actually, and then I, of course, announced it on social media and all of that, and then after that I wrote, I started meeting up with people, and there was a few who reached out. So the day after I kind of announced it online, we met up for a coffee, and we were 5-6 founders, and I think 4 of us out of the 5 or 6 had just closed down the company. So we were talking, sharing notes, what happened, why did it not go well for you, and we kind of called it an AA for failed startup. And
that's actually amazing.
Yeah.
And now
That's
we
fantastic.
actually, and then they're like, we should do this again.
FA,
So then I created a WhatsApp group, and you're actually in it, Heini. So now we're actually meeting up every Tuesday now, and we're calling it Morning Tech Brew. So we're grabbing a coffee, we meet up a couple of founders, we talk about other things than failure, obviously, but helping each other through the problems that we all have. So that's also something good that's come out of it, and deal with it in different ways.
So in the community, failure is often seen as a little bit of a taboo, and there's just a stigma around failure, which is weird because most fail. Why do you think that is, and has this experience changed that?
Yeah, it's a bit strange, right? If 9 out of 10 does it, and then you still feel it like it's a stigma. But I guess it's that about being kind of openly, maybe vulnerable. Because I mean, you did a bet, you like the last 5 years for me, right? And it didn't pan out because of course you want to grow billions of users, unicorn status, all of that. And then you let down your team. You know, maybe you're lucky to attract some great talent and you can't pay salaries, so you promise them some equity. That didn't pay out, obviously. They've had a low salaries, you maybe feel bad about that, and then everybody around you, the investments, taking in other people's money, angels, VCs. But I think when you talk to people like we're doing now, or with the Morning Tech Brew community now, and when you open up and it's on a one-on-one, then people are actually extremely supportive, and they all pat you on the shoulder, applaud you, like, really good for trying, you'll get it the next time, you know. It's
totally.
So when you start talking about it, people open up, and you are not, obviously 9 out of 10 has failed, so you're definitely not alone.
If you look at LinkedIn, it looks like everyone's winning, everyone's unicorn, right?
Yeah, I'm not using LinkedIn at the moment. It also made me a bit depressed back in May.
Yeah, exactly. It can be a little bit rough.
Yeah.
What do you think, Hassan?
Oh, nothing. I'm just this is taking me back, right? So yeah, I just I'm right there with you, Robin. So I mean, the stigma around it specifically is just I never understood it, kind of thing, because especially because a lot of behind closed doors, a lot of investors actually like the failure.
Yeah.
It's something I noticed. Like they're like, okay, you know, what did you do? What happened there? What failed? And they're kind of looking, how did you fail, kind of thing. Yeah. So if you can build like a really good story, this is what we do as founders, right? Like tell a lot of stories, and this one is definitely gonna, like, you're gonna have to come up with just a really, really good story there, just like you're pitching a startup or on pitching your failure. And I've seen that be great, like just talking about the things that really went bad, because then they know, like, okay, wow, yeah, like these are the things we're also seeing in other companies. And this person has gone through it and knows like how to deal with that. And so if this ever happens again, they're going to crush it. And I know 100%. Some investors personally that actually value that more than we did the startup and everything was great and the timing was good and the PMF was great.
Basically, you got lucky.
Blah. Just walk in the park, like, what did you learn?
Of course, there's so much there's so much hard work and talent and all of that involved, right? But there's also a lot of luck involved. There just is, right? In a way. Obviously, we need to work hard to make to make more luck, have luck in our favor. But in the end, like, you know, having an exit or whatever, or having 2 exits, I don't think ranks higher than having a failure or 2. I really don't think so. It's more about how you tell those stories around both.
But also, they've seen, like, how you failed sounds a little bit weird. How you failed, meaning you stood by it for 4 years. You fought for it till the end. They saw all that. They remember all that, and they're also talking about their colleagues about that. So I would not be worried about that at all. Quite the opposite. Doing consumer is impossible. It's really
it's crazy. But everything is hard. So I was in an electric car startup before, and that was also hard. And I'm like, an app, it's easy, but it's not. It's just other requirements.
I think we skipped a little bit, like the stamina part. I'm glad we're talking about it now, because that resilience is.
You've shown that.
Yeah, you've shown that. You've absolutely shown that.
No, it was more. I met my current investors and some new ones that haven't invested in me, and then you also like you say, Hassan, it's like you're way more fundable now because you've learned a shit ton. You know a lot of people, so you can hire much faster. You know freelancers and all of that, and you're just gonna take it to the next level, right? So they don't have to pay for those mistakes because you kind of made them. So. And
someone else paid for your founder.
That's how someone said it. Like, it's great that they paid for it. Now I can invest, and
you'll bring it with you to your next one.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, some investors that I don't know reached out and like, hey, let me know if you're starting something again. And I've never talked to him, so it does happen. And also my current ones, like, let us know if So I think it's good to talk about it and talk to the investors and be honest. I met one of them yesterday. Went for a walk around the lakes, and he's like, "So what have you learned? What are you gonna do now? Let's stay in touch." All of that. So it's because everybody knows how tough it is. So
fantastic. So I want to thank you for sharing all this, Robin. You're staying with us. We're going on a short break. We'll be right back for a little bit of final thoughts. We are back. Okay, so for the wrapping up part here, we have a couple more questions to go here, and one of them is, we've talked a little about learnings, but if you really want to go up to the chopper again, Robin, what do you think is the primary learning here?
I guess there's many, but first of all, I think I'm a very different person to who I was just 5 years ago before Cogo. After all of this, and facing that failure, I guess, if we want to call it, or success of failing. Like, one of my friends actually, when I told him, like, yeah, that's great, congratulations, we need to celebrate this more, But going through that and going through that pain really shows, what you're made of. Like, how do I handle it? Can I handle it, or do I break down, and all of that? Then maybe I was a bit oblivious, but I was like, okay, we're early stage, so okay, these big changes in the industry, in the finance sector, the economy, maybe we're a bit protected. Obviously, we were not, because it impacted our industry, and it trickles down to the smallest of companies. So realizing that, I think, is like, no one escapes it, right? It affects everybody.
Totally.
And then also how important the people around you are, I would say, because I mean, you have the idea, and yes, me as one person, individual, can execute and do a lot of things, but I'm not technical, and I mean, there's a lot of areas where I lack. So I need the right people around me, and also having the right people is super important, because it would either not go so well, and you might argue and all of that. That's one of the main reasons to startups also failing. But having someone that you can go through this with, and people that understands and shares your vision and what you want to do, I would say is crucial as well.
Yeah, no. I mean, you mentioned the people around you while you're in it. Obviously, also the people around you that are not in it, like your wife and family and so on.
I mean, I don't know, but if your partner is not supportive, like if they call you, like, where are you? Why are you not home? Or it's dinner, or I don't have kids yet, but if your kids, like, if you don't have someone to support you back home that is 100% in and accept that it's long days, mentally, again, we it's not just about the work, it's everything around you, exercising, mental health, the work you do at the office and all of that. Like, if you have that over you bring it in, and you're not going to be able to focus. And it's like a part of the team, family, like
100%. Comments on this, Hassan?
I love it. I love it. I
It's
mean,
important.
yeah, specifically the support, friends and family before, as in like during the startup, and also after, right? I'm sure the people around you were there for you after, you know, the company went down. So shout out to all the friends and family out there
for being there.
It's important.
Here's it is. Here's the big next one. I think you've hinted it already, but are you going to do another startup?
Yeah, I think so. I don't have the.
Well, you finally got the education.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
and
also
else
because.
For it.
Yeah, exactly. Like come this far, right? And you learn so much. So it's stupid to stop now. But it's not that easy. It's not a clear-cut choice, right? Because it is, you do sacrifice a lot in the beginning. Low salary, no salary, work. The alternative costs are extremely high. So it's not a slam dunk, I would say. But following your heart, which I tell everybody else to do, it's really I wanna continue down that path. Obviously, it's hard, but it's super rewarding. Like get an idea, see a problem, you need to fix it. It turns into something. You see other people using it. Oh, you have my app on your phone. You know that's a pretty cool feeling, right? So it's amazing to see something coming to life. So
I was gonna say, like, wait until you start your second one, and then that fails, and then you start thinking about the third one, and it's like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, what is going on?
Such an idiot.
But not everyone comes to that conclusion, Robin, right? No. A lot of people come to the opposite conclusion, say, look, I'm just not built for this. But I think you've concluded that you might be built for this, right?
Yeah, I enjoy that. You need to be a certain personality type, and it's good and bad. But we have our flaws for sure. No, but definitely it's so much fun. It's crazy. Yeah. Like I was on Sundays, I was excited, like, yes, finally it's Monday tomorrow, because then the rest of the team will be online and the rest of the team will be in the office, right? And
I'm so lonely.
I've been online. Yeah, because I've been online all weekend, like not every weekend, obviously, but a lot of, especially in the beginning. Yeah. And that's what you really need that, because it gets so hard. So you need to have that passion for it. Otherwise, you will give up and someone else will do it. So also finding the right idea. Yeah. And that's why I say yes, but not now, because I don't have that thing yet. My new Cogo, right? My new baby.
Okay.
And I think you like we talked about earlier, like there is some time needed for therapy and kind of reflection, and like it really is. It's important. Between jobs, between startups, I think even more, to be honest. One of the most devastating things is to just like go through a form of hardship and then learn nothing and not reflect. So yeah,
100%,
and that'll come
100%.
So we're going to see you with a new startup within the next year, Robin?
Hopefully.
Cool.
Let's go.
Any great ideas? Reach out to
yes, you will.
Robin on LinkedIn.
You will. But any ideas, reach out. It's
he likes consumer, he likes transportation, all kinds of things.
Travel. Yeah, so it's also, there's a wide spectrum of what to do, right? Join a company, start something from scratch, joining something that's early, joining something that's scale up. There are different ways of utilizing the passion and the skills that you have as an entrepreneur. So it doesn't always have to be from scratch, right? It's a bit like maybe a relationship. You had a girlfriend or boyfriend in high school, you broke up. Like, did you run into the next one the next day, or did you take some time to reflect and find yourself again? That's kind of where I'm right now. Finding myself.
I know some people that run into the next one the next day usually.
Yeah, I know plenty too, and it worked out for some of them, but some are like
for some,
play some Xbox,
do something. But I know you're going to travel, right? You're going to travel a little bit.
Yeah, I'll try and do some traveling and spend time with family and friends and all of that. So
cool. Before we get to the last question, which is a little bit out of not on the same subject. I mean, Robin, you look great. You look like you're in good shape. I'm glad to see that. We went for a walk a couple of months ago, and you also felt like you were doing good. So I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, I am. Thank you. I mean, now we're talking about something tough, right? But it's good to go through, and it's okay to go through it as well. Like, you learn a lot.
Cool. We learn a lot. Yeah. We're going to talk about the final question we do every week on the podcast here. And it is, what are you obsessed with right now? And Hassan, do you want to start us today?
Sure. So I love to write. And recently I realized that I like writing poetry. So I've just been writing poems. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow. We're going to open the podcast to one of your poems soon, or?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Or like tech poems?
Yeah.
Or?
No. Yeah, totally. I'm just going like, the LLM of the, no.
Yeah, they're in Python.
They're mostly about, I would say there's a lot of romance involved.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I enjoy it. That's fun.
Another type of creativity as well. So it's.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to hear some of those. Well, we need to have them on here at some point.
Let's do it.
Robin, what do you say? What are you obsessed with right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think actually I'm going back a bit to the basics. Actually, I mean, now I had a team for a long time, so I'm trying to figure out how can I do something where it's kind of just me. A couple of months ago, I was like, okay, I'm not a tech person, I'm not a coder, but I wanted to build a website. So I learned how to build a website. So yeah, the networking group I mentioned, I built that one. Spent like 2 weeks on it. Obviously not efficient, but great learning. And just trying to focus a lot on taking a step back, because not being productive, not being valuable to the world or something, just focusing on me has been a lot of focus lately.
Very cool.
Awesome.
I mean, yeah, I always talk about building, and building includes, writing poems and building websites. I mean, it's about building something. I think that's just so important.
Yeah, it can be many different things. Building on yourself or building in the notepad. It's great. Getting the creativity out.
Yeah, exactly. Get it out there. Mine is a little bit different, I will say that, and I have to come up with something every week. So this morning I got a request for a quote for a press release, and that sort of got me a little bit obsessed today by something that's been brewing for some time, which I think is a huge deal and is a lot of fun. And we are with a partner actually building the first ever physical Vivino store, and it's a fully branded Vivino store that's going to open in a mall in Singapore, actually in a few weeks. And I'm just like, since I got this, hey, we need a quote for the press release on this. I'm just seeing the pictures, and it's just, I am totally obsessed. Seeing this thing that started as an app in a basement somewhere, and a few weeks from now, we'll be walking into a huge mall in Singapore and seeing this big Vivino store. I'm totally obsessed by that. What can I say?
That's pretty epic.
That is pretty cool, right? I mean, it's crazy. So I'm going to look forward to that.
Are you going there? Or?
Yes, I will. We'll open in a few weeks. Then we'll have official opening, like a real, cut the ribbon, whatever, in early October. So I'm going to go over for that.
Yeah. You're making me want to go now. Like now, I keep hearing you talk about this. It just sounds so cool. And I saw some of the sketches.
The mock-ups,
not even sketches, like full-on mock-ups.
Yeah,
it looks insane. Honestly,
it's going to be cool. Yeah, it's good. So I'm super excited about it. So we'll see how all that goes.
No, I just would be interesting to hear your pitch to the executive team and maybe investors. Go from app to store. It's
it's
that must have been a tough sell as well, right? So it's maybe you should have an episode on how to do that.
Yeah, just on that. How do you expand totally out of focus? But let me give you, since we're talking about it, let me give you 30 seconds here. So first of all, this is not a huge investment from us. We're doing it with a partner. So like data and brand and concept we're helping with. Not a huge financial investment for us. But the basic pitch here is that most wine is still sold in physical retail stores. We're not really getting any piece of that action. We're the biggest wine app, biggest wine community in the world. We should be getting a piece of that action too. That's the short pitch. So
and you guys have done it, because I've seen like Vivino stands and like Copenhagen Airport, stuff like that.
We have quite a few supermarket chains that use our data now. Our
so you've tested that, and
totally.
Okay, so that's what it is. So when you say use our data, like you have a stand and it's like these are the wines that people are buying,
exactly,
and
ratings. So we can tell people what the best wines in the store is, right? And that just really lifts sales.
Yes.
Maybe did TikTok books stole your idea, maybe.
Yeah, I saw that. That's
yeah.
where they're in stores. They're in bookstores. TikTok. It feels a little bit the opposite, but yeah. Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much. We've come to the end. So thank you, Hassan, and thank you, Robin. Great to have you on.
Thank you so much. Great to be
Thank
here.
you.
Please make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review and a rating. It really helps. For those on YouTube, check out Raw Startup, where you'll find lots of videos about building a startup. This has been Founders Weekly. Now stop listening and go build something.